Welcome to the Dare to Grow Show. I'm Sarah Morgan, and my mission is to help you take daily action in your business, show up consistently and confidently for your audience, and earn more with digital products and programs. I know you have a rad vision for your life and business, but do you dare to grow? Let's jump into this episode and talk about how to make it happen. All right, welcome to episode 82. This week, we're talking about what to do when you feel stuck, when you feel like nothing you're doing is working, when nothing feels really that great. Maybe you're procrastinating often or putting things off. Maybe you're looking through Instagram for ideas and inspiration and motivation, or maybe what you're creating just isn't coming out right. For me, this tends to feel either like I'm doing everything and nothing is really going anywhere, like I'm pedaling and pedaling and pedaling, but my tires aren't actually on the ground, or I'm just avoiding everything, avoiding starting, avoiding finishing things, avoiding planning, avoiding the plan that I made, and just continuously pushing my deadlines back. So today I want to share a few tips and things that I do to get myself going again when I'm feeling really stalled or stuck. And before we dive into today's episode, I just want to remind you that if you enjoy this episode or you are a weekly listener, shout out to all of you. Leaving a review is a really big help to grow the podcast. So if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, you can leave a review right in the app. Or if you're on another platform, I always love getting stories, shout outs. You can screenshot on your phone, share it on stories, and make sure to tag me at XO Sarah Morgan so I can share it on my stories too. Okay, let's dive in. So the first thing I always do when I am feeling stalled is checking the basics. Am I eating enough, sleeping enough, taking time off? Am I doing some sort of movement multiple times a week? Am I interacting with people? Am I scrolling too much? For me, sometimes I just need to take a walk, have a shower, eat a cheeseburger, and then I feel like I can get back on track. So before you dive into problem solving or feeling like something in your business is wrong, make sure you're keeping up with those like basic human needs. It's ridiculous that they just go out the window, but sometimes they totally do. Next up, track your time. How have you spent the last week? On little tasks or on the needle-moving, money-making tasks? Write down every single thing you're doing and how long it's taking. And this is stuff from walking the dog to hosting coaching calls to deleting spam from your inbox. And then go through that list and evaluate how you're spending your time. Because if your days are getting eaten up by small admin tasks, that is probably contributing to feeling stuck because you aren't spending enough time on things that are going to generate clients or customers or benefit your clients or customers. You probably aren't working in your zone of genius, and when that isn't happening enough, it is really easy to feel stuck. If you are working on a project or a specific problem or goal, you want to write a list of all the things you could do to fix that problem or get yourself moving. I like to start with a blank page for this. So if you're stuck because there's some sort of roadblock, maybe you have a big scary goal or there's some sort of challenge that you're trying to get through, sit down with a notebook. I like to get away from my laptop, away from all of my plans, all of the stuff I've already written down, and off the top of my head, come up with all of the ways that I can fix the problem or all the things I can do to hit the goal. Sometimes when we sit down with like project management system or a calendar, we get a little too realistic with this. And so it helps me at least to get away from work in order to come up with some different, more out-of-the-box ideas. And often making a list like this, even if I don't do everything on the list, helps me feel better and see more possibilities and more options, which helps me to get going again. Another list you can make is all of the scary things that could happen. Tim Ferriss calls this fear setting. It's like the opposite of goal setting. So you essentially write down all of your fears and then walk through them in your mind to figure out how you could avoid that issue or get through it. Most of our fears will never come true, but we spend a lot of time thinking about them, or they're just like in the back of our mind. And that still wastes a ton of energy. So sometimes the best option is to just go through the worst case scenario, because usually there's a way to get through it or get around it, or we just realize that it's unlikely to happen altogether, or that if it does happen, it's not really going to be that big of a deal. I like to remind myself that at almost 38 years old, nothing has knocked me out for the count yet, which means I can handle quite a bit of stress, quite a bit of bullshit and messiness and failures, and still come out not just okay, but totally fine. And maybe even in a better place than I was to start. So if you've got a lot of fear or a lot of worries or what ifs going on, fear setting is a great place to start. Now, there is also the kind of stuck that is like a general sense of something being off. Maybe it's not even about choosing a direction or making decisions because you're not quite sure what you want. So in this case, I make 2 lists. Obviously, I love to make lists and journal to process and figure things out. So I make 1 list of everything that feels good right now so that I can focus on doing more of those things. And then I make a second list of all the things that don't feel good. And sometimes it's small or random things that could really make the difference. One of the things that I keep doing right now that doesn't feel good, even as I'm doing it, is staying up until 1 o'clock in the morning. Like it kind of feels good in the moment because it's a quiet space, my apartment's all cozy, I have no obligations. I'm usually binging something on Netflix, but there's like a little guilt or shame maybe in the back of my head reminding me that I should probably go to sleep earlier. And so knowing that, I can make an adjustment either around my attitude about staying up until 1 a.m. Maybe I'm just a night owl. That's cool. Or I can figure out what it takes to get me in bed earlier or why I'm avoiding it. Plus, just the act of getting stuff out of your brain and onto paper, listing out every little thing, at least for me, feels really relieving. Often because we are like in the midst of living life and getting shit done, we don't take time to pay enough attention to what feels good and what doesn't. We kind of notice the good or bad feeling as it's happening, but we don't go back and think through why we're doing something, what we could do differently, or why that situation or task feels bad. And it might not just be about your business. We also need to comb through our personal lives and see if there is like a time suck or an energy drain that might be eating up time and attention that would be better focused elsewhere. And then once you have all of these lists, stop doing everything that isn't going to help your goal or just isn't working. Feels bad. If you're feeling stalled or stuck around accomplishing something or going after a goal, sometimes hyper-focus actually works. So look at your calendar and take out everything that is not helping you move toward that goal. A lot of times for us online business owners, this is things like redesigning a PDF or creating something new instead of showing up and selling the thing that we already have. For example, my Instagram caption guide, it's a PDF, is a few years old. It's in my old colors with old photos, and I really want to redesign it, partially because I just like designing things. But I know that updating the colors is not going to help more people download it. It's not going to help people get better results, and it's not going to help turn more of the people that download it into Essentials members. So if I were to spend the time redesigning it, I know I would feel stalled because it isn't going to create different results. So right now, you might be only spending an hour a day or an hour a week on tasks that move you toward your goal. But if you took out all of those tasks or the time spent procrastinating or scrolling, you maybe could be spending 3 hours every day or 5 hours every day on that goal. Imagine if you spent 20 hours a week working toward your goal instead of 5 or 1. You are going to move further, faster, and you will stop feeling stuck because you'll start seeing more engagement, more interest, more results from your efforts. Sometimes it feels like a lot of stuff will fall through the cracks if we stop doing all those little things. But really what happens is you feel a lot less stressed and you have a lot more time to focus on the big stuff. Okay, next up, you gotta ask for help. And again, this doesn't just have to be business stuff. If you have a lot on your plate, you might be feeling stuck because you just don't have the time or the energy to focus on things that are gonna make you feel like you're moving forward. If you want your business to grow, but you're spending hours doing housework or in your inbox or scheduling social media posts, then maybe you need to hire
or ask a friend or a family member for help. As women, we are told that we're supposed to balance everything and be happy and look good while we're doing it, which is total bullshit and often leads us to not asking for help until we're like fully drowning or burned out. And a great place to start is looking at the things that you are doing every day or every week that you just don't like doing or that takes a ton of time, and then finding someone else to take over that task or just stopping it altogether. So, example, recently my virtual assistant has been making a whole bunch of databases and spreadsheets and calendars in Airtable for me. I love Airtable. So it's things like tracking guests for the podcast panel episodes. Now we have one space where we can see who was asked to participate, who said yes, who submitted their audio, who's already had their episode published, and my assistant did all of that for me. That task would have sat on my to-do list, in my Asana, in the back of my brain for months, because right now I'm focused on the needle-moving stuff, and I didn't actually know how to set it up in Airtable. So instead, I just mentioned it to my VA, and she finished it in one day. So remember, just because you aren't working on a task right now doesn't mean your brain isn't still keeping track of it, and that uses energy, so the more you can take off your plate, the better. Something else that's beneficial in hiring help, whether that's personal or business, is that once you hire someone and find someone who is really great at what they do, they will come to you and say, hey, this would work better if we did it this way. Now, that is an expectation or like a level of communication that you have to set. I always tell people I hire that if I'm doing something that is not the best option or you think it could work better in a different way, you can always tell me. I expect you to tell me. That's a conversation we have at the start so that the communication is open. They know that I am looking to them and their expertise to help make that portion of my business or my life better. And when people know that you trust them, you trust their expertise, and give them autonomy to come up with new ideas and make decisions, they will go the extra mile just because they know they can. And then lastly, to get unstuck, get away from work. Get out of your routine, take a day off, get out of your house, immerse yourself in something else, because your brain, like I said, will still be brainstorming and problem solving in the background. You need to completely take your focus off whatever is making you feel stuck so that your brain can work through the things in your subconscious while you enjoy doing something else. Go to the movies, pick up a new book, get a massage, go for a walk, bake a cake. That's one of my favorites. I love baking on the weekend because sitting in the stuckness, the problems, the challenges, and looking at your computer, opening more windows and tabs, doing research, scrolling through Instagram, that stuff is not going to help and will actually make you feel worse because you're not going to get anywhere from that. We need to get comfortable with doing nothing or doing fun things in order to give our brains a break, give our bodies a break, so that when we come back to it feeling rested and focused, we're able to take on that challenge. And then lastly, don't be afraid to completely change your plan. Throw the whole thing out the window. Change your goal, how you're working, what you're working on, who you're working with, if you feel stuck. Because that feeling is a reminder that something needs to change. Maybe it's a little change, like me, like you need to start getting in bed by 11 p.m., or maybe you need to scrap your whole offer and start from scratch. Don't be afraid to change things that don't feel good, because whatever you change will be a change for the better. It's going to feel better. And if it feels better, it will probably work better. All right. I hope that is making you feel a little less stressed if you've been feeling stuck. I always love to hear your thoughts and have a little discussion. So head over to Instagram, find me at @XOSarahMorgan, look for the episode 82 post, and let's chat. And as always, thank you for hanging out with me this week. I will talk to you again soon. Oh, and one more thing before I go. If you have more questions on what we talked about today, you want templates, trainings, or some accountability to make that shit happen, head over to xosarah.com/essentials and become a member of The Essentials. You will get instant access to the courses, coaching calls, and community. And this way I can help you simplify your marketing, show up with confidence, and dare to grow every single day.